thank you everyone for attending this North Section Town Hall. Hopefully this is the first of many that we can sponsor. I'm Rob Pyatt. I'm the North Section Director for AIA Colorado. And probably, this is my first town hall. This is my first position with AIA Colorado. And I'm pretty excited to participate. So we're basically going to have kind of a community conversation that focuses around the idea of resiliency and how folks are adapting or recovering and how we might regenerate and pivot given the challenging times that we're all facing and that our industry and profession are facing. So we have some firm leaders and some young architects on the panel, and we're looking forward to hearing from them about their experience and insight. I'll introduce them, and then maybe they can talk a little bit about themselves and introduce themselves. EJ Mead from ARC 11. He's a principal and an architect. Thanks for joining. We have Rebecca Spears, who's the principal at R&B Architects in Fort Collins. Thank you. Lauren was going to join us. I don't see that she's on the call, but hopefully she'll make it in. Anna Slowey is an associate AIA member, and she's with Surround Architects, a designer there. Thanks, Anna. And Christopher O'Hara, who's a professional affiliate with us. And if you guys could maybe introduce yourselves, and we'll start with Rebecca.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Rob, for inviting me to be on the panel. Very interested in seeing what everybody has to say on this topic. I'm Rebecca Spears. I'm one of 3 principals at RB+B Architects. We're in Fort Collins, and we've been around for about 65 years. We're a staff of 25, all in one office. And well, actually, we're in about 25 offices right now. We have about 9 people actually working at the office, and the rest of us are working remotely. We do mainly educational work, K-12 school design, and then another sideline, we do quite a few breweries as well.
Great, EJ?
Yeah, hi, I'm EJ Mead. I'm a founding principal of ARC 11. We are a firm of 22 people. When we're not all sequestered at home, we have offices in Boulder and Denver, split about half in each office. Our work is primarily private sector. Probably 50% of it is high-end residential. The other 50% tends to be hospitality and corporate work. Yeah, that's about it for now.
I see that Lauren is joining us, but we'll wait a few moments for her to log in. But Anna, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Anna Slowey. I work at Surround Architecture, like Rob mentioned. We are a firm based in Boulder, 12 of us currently, all working remote at the moment, except our principal who's holding down the fort. And yeah, we primarily do high-end residential, commercial, a little bit of hospitality as well. And I'm a project designer there.
Thank you, Anna. Chris?
I'm Chris O'Hara with Studio NYL, structural engineers and facade designers, so I'm not actually an architect. We do have a number of architects on the team though, especially on the facade side of the office. We are based in Boulder, but now have 6 people in Denver, and we have a total of 17. And our work is kind of all over the map, and from houses to high rises. It's a very diverse practice.
Thanks, Chris. Lauren, are you able to hear us or introduce yourself? I see that you're still, it looks like you're still joining with your audio.
I know from some of my team, there might be some internet issues in South Boulder right now.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting for Lauren, I'll just make a couple of announcements. So there's a few items that we would like to make sure everybody is aware of. The The statewide virtual town hall is set for July 22nd. And the awards program is happening at the drive-in on August 17th. The practice and design conference is set for, it's online this year, and it's between October 14th and the 16th. There's still opportunities for females in the profession to take part in the Women in Architecture exhibit. And so I would encourage everyone to pass that along so that we can ensure that everybody's aware of that. I see that Lauren has also just joined us, and so I'll let you introduce yourself if you could as a panelist.
Hi, sorry about that. Cell phone and internet went out at my house. So I had to go find somewhere else to call in from. Anyway, my name's Lauren. I'm with HMH Architecture and Interiors. We're a small residential firm in Boulder. Yeah, I don't know, is this how quick of an introduction am I doing?
That's fine. We'll get to learn more as we start asking questions. So there's some resources still available for emerging professionals that could offset the cost of exams. And I would encourage everyone to go to the AIA website and learn about that. There may be some additional information on the chat line related to that. And then we'll also have a North Section Connect event on July 23rd at 4:30. So after the virtual town hall, the statewide town hall, we'll also have one for the North Section. So with that, I think we can start kind of engaging the audience. And if you are interested in submitting a question, you can do it either through the question and answer box or through the chat. And then we'd really like to focus on the ideas of resiliency and how folks might be adapting or recovering or pivoting during these challenging times. You know, if you're also, you should kind of reach out and let us know where you're calling in from. So if you could let us know if you're calling in from Fort Collins or Boulder, we'd like to see that. So with that, we'll look to see what the audience questions might be.
And we can always provide prompts.
Sure. But certainly Scott Rodwin has a question.
No, we can't see him.
Well, to get started, why don't we just start a conversation related to what impacts each of you have kind of experienced with current events with your firm and maybe professionally. So I'll start with you, EJ.
Okay. I think this is probably the fourth recession I've been through in the firm practice, but it's the one that in some way, well, always is maybe, rethink an awful lot of things about how we practice. Going into it, we had a pretty full body of work, and one of our larger projects was the corporate headquarters. As their stock plummeted from 70 to 24, they put a hold on it. We had a small municipal museum addition that the municipality canceled a lot of their private contracts. So it made me feel vulnerable. At the same time, I'm trying to move everybody to a remote location, and we're remote working, which actually went much smoother than I think anyone anticipated. As I said, we've got offices in Boulder and Denver, and we work across teams there anyway. So had the technology in place that we just had to redistribute really for that. Um, you talked about, a couple of words you threw out there, Rob, but adapt was one. The word that's really stuck with me in all of this has been reset. I was the guy who always thought, oh, we've got to work together. We've all got to be on the same table, drawing together. And what I've really come to understand is that that will never happen again. Whether for COVID or for personal reasons or personnel reasons, there's this ability now to have a very flexible office, to have people in multiple locations. My employees are psyched not to commute. There's one or two that, we get together for an occasional, in-person meeting, but I think we've really started to understand that the office space can be much more virtual. Personally, what it's demanded of me, though, is a much more, I would say, active role in leadership. I think I took a lot for granted being in the same space with people, that there was sort of this serendipitous meetings that I could check in on a project, check in on how someone was doing. And now I am much more rigorous and focused about setting those online meetings up, checking in via email. But even maybe perhaps more importantly is I've made it a habit on Sunday evenings to send out a company-wide email that really, in my mind, is about what I'd like to call like resilient vulnerability. This is what I'm thinking. This is where the firm is. This is where our work stature is. This is what I'm fearful of. This is what I'm hopeful about, because ultimately, architecture is fairly optimistic, and we got to remain optimistic in order to practice. But it's opened up a lot clearer and I would say, more vulnerable conversations within the studio.
And Chris, I know you've mentioned something similar as it relates to resetting and your understanding of how your office or operation might look in the future. Do you want to add to what EJ's describing?
Yeah, I think the leadership is the thing that has been the most interesting in it, of how that's evolved, where my 9 to 5 portion of the day generally was just going desk to desk, sketching crits, helping enable the team throughout the day, and trying to do that remotely has proven to be a lot more challenging. Fortunately, similar to EJ, we had the 2 offices, and the ones I didn't mention, we have what we call satellites in Colorado Springs, Boston, and Minneapolis, which is a nice way of saying when one of us is there, it's an office. And as a result, being able to work virtually and was really technologically fine. It was always that interpersonal ability to give people the resources they need and train them on the stuff that they're evolving into and things of that nature was just much, much more time consuming. And now, as I think about what is our future office and how the team really enjoys being at home, it starts to questions like, well, maybe our office isn't, a series of desks in an open studio, but rather just a series of communal spaces for meetings, and then places you can check in and out between meetings, and you go back and work home when you're not in meetings. I don't know where it's going, but it's definitely the questions we're asking ourselves. The other thing, speaking, with EJ kind of bearing his feelings on Sundays, I found it's been good for us to communicate where the firm's going a lot more, because the anxiety that obviously existed in the office of seeing colleagues lose jobs and things of that nature, we're constantly trying to be vigorous about what we're chasing, what's in the office, where the excitement is, because normally as one of the managers of the office, I'm more worried about how we're going to find time to get the work done, and nobody else is really seeing that because I'm not in the building. All of that's happening at my desk, and getting the renderings out of all the different things going on in the office, all the things that are exciting. We have to be a little bit more vigorous about doing now, where we used to just do like what we call projects and pints, every month or so, and now we're doing it like every other week.
Yeah. Rebecca, have you found that that's something that your firm has experienced as well, in terms of how you're evaluating the office culture or resources in the future?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about just the feelings of the staff. Um, uh, we have something that we call Friday break, and we've had it since the inception of the firm 65 years ago. And it originally was just every Friday at 10 o'clock, everybody got together and had a cup of coffee and a donut and talked about what they were doing over the week and just, gabbed. About 15 years ago, it sort of morphed into more of a knowledge share, project share. We actually had scheduled things. One of the things I felt like new graduates were missing when they came to start working at a firm was actually getting to talk about architecture anymore. We did it all the time in school, and now you're in an office and you just talk about parapet details. And so we use that Friday break time, and it's just been way more important now than ever before to have everybody online at the same time. Hey, but we start with something like, what's everybody been doing? Or, there might be a question of the week, or so that everybody turns their camera on and we can see each other and connect. But then also, we use it to talk about a particular project, have that team present their project and where they are, and, kind of keep everybody tied in and excited about the work that we're doing. So yeah, that kind of water cooler talk that we're all missing, I think from a leadership standpoint and from a coworker standpoint is the thing that's suffering most. We've all gotten through the technical difficulties. We have a client office client that at the beginning, we've been seeing this pendulum swing, right when we all had to work from home, everybody hated it. So, the office design was saying, okay, well, for sure, everybody's going to want to come back to the office because we hate this. And then it became, well, you know what, this isn't so bad. We all kind of like working from home, and maybe we don't need as many offices anymore. So that'll be interesting to see I think we're kind of coming back to, I like working from home, but boy, I miss just being with people. Yeah. So we'll see what happens in the next few months.
Lauren and Anna, do you have kind of
Yeah.
anything that you can share on that topic?
Yeah, we're a small firm of 12, open office before this. So the idea of, just like water cooler talk really resonates, just being able to, yell across the aisle, get someone's opinion. So we've definitely been trying to leverage, the chat room, that sort of stuff, getting together for occasional outdoor happy hour type things where we can kind of spread out and at least see each other face to face. Showing up by video, just seeing a human face goes a long way rather than just their voice on a phone. So we've been doing that, but like you all have been mentioning, certainly rethinking what does the office look like. And I think one of the words Rob had thrown out that I don't know if anyone has touched on yet is regenerate. Like, I think we've actually absorbed this excitement and energy to run forward and think about, what are the spaces that are important? Maybe it's just an awesome, conference room that can open up to the outdoors, and really thinking about the idea of, butts in seats, like the desks, do they all need to kind of be there? Maybe it's a smaller scale. So these are questions we just started asking ourselves. Of course, no plans. It's just made everyone start thinking. And of course, I think we all realize we are now seeing our loved ones and our families and, saving time with the commute. So I think we're all taking the time to celebrate the positives and be vocal about that, and trying to, I guess, re-achieve that work-life balance. While at the same time being very transparent about any challenges, the ways that we can set everyone up for more success. But in terms of how we've been impacted, as a small firm with a lot of residential work, we've had a pretty robust workload that's maintained. And so I think regardless of the fluctuations that have come, or typologies such as you know, a restaurant that's maybe rethinking what it means to be a restaurant, we've overall kind of maintained our level of work. So yeah, we're actually currently trying to hire. And so one of our big questions is, what does hiring look like in a remote environment as well? And because we are set up to be so project manager, I guess our project managers, we have way more of them than just support staff. It's actually been easier for all of us to kind of just keep running with our projects. We don't have as many people that we need to kind of keep an eye on. That's never really been how our firm is set up. So I would say it's been fairly seamless for us.
Lauren?
Sorry, I'm in a bit of a hailstorm at the moment. I'm just having the best
Oh,
luck with
what's
my
that?
internet connection and everything. So I don't know if you guys can hear me or not over this noise, but
You can
you
hear
know,
me.
I think HMH has been really lucky. We've been quite busy. And so from that standpoint, at least in terms of workload and sort of the fear of, you know, all the uncertainty, we've probably been a little more secure than a lot of firms. But I think I just want to echo what a lot of people are saying. You know, the transition to being remote was actually fairly easy and quick and painless, mostly. But what's been a lot harder has been sort of the interpersonal, you know, making sure that we leave time for the communication sort of about nothing. You know, I think we're quite efficient in terms of getting job work done, and maybe more efficient than being in the office. But I think that it is hard to, probably our biggest struggle is maintaining the social relationships. I mean, the social aspect has always been a huge part of HMH, you know, not just, you know, we do the design reviews and all of that, sort of the in-office fun design time, design conversations, but we also have a big, you know, we put on the month of modern, and we're, you know, as an office, we show up to a lot of AIA events together, and to, you know, just really try and participate in the community to sort of foster the larger design discussions. And I think that it's really not the same doing those things through virtual meetings. I mean, this is great. and I think that we're all sort of working to figure out what the best methods to do that are moving forward, but I don't know that we've quite hit it yet. So I feel like that's probably the biggest hurdle that we're continuing to face.
Yep. We do have some questions from the audience. I think I'll probably jump in. They're kind of on topic. One of them from Nathan is, what do you all see as a benchmark to allow small firms to bring their coworkers back together into an open office space? And, you know, in the kind of this theme of adaptation or pivoting and resetting, how do you all kind of envision that? Is that possible in the kind of post-COVID world, and what could that look like? What would the benchmarks be? Maybe for you all personally with your firms and teams?
You know, we've been polling employees about their desire to be in the office, and about 10%, 2 out of 22 said they'd be in the office full time. And then there was a long discussion about what it would take for people to feel comfortable in an open office. And I honestly think that, you know, we're not going to know what that is for at least a year, you know, until there really is some clarity about vaccines. We're not counting on it happening for at least a year. And what it looks like after that, I think, is going to be very changed. we've already talked about downsizing the amount of space we need. And as Chris was alluding to, having these satellites, to having the opportunity to work from anywhere. I'm up in the woods in Pitkin County right now. When I realized I was working remotely from Boulder County, I could, work remotely from anywhere. So I think there's some real opportunity to that. But as far as a small firm coming, back into an open office, I don't see that happening for at least a year.
Yeah, I'd agree. We're definitely playing it on the conservative side in our office. There are 3 people in our entire office who said they really want to be back in the office. And even then, they only want to do it maybe 3 days a week. And we've set up policies and things of the nature to be able to communicate and make the desks a little bit more spread out for the people who are going to go in, because it just happen to be that they happen to sit next to each other and things of that nature, in the way we were set up before. But we do have a few people with some vulnerabilities, and it's just nothing I can see us requiring anytime soon.
In our office, we had a very strange situation. In February, we all moved out of our office because we were renovating it. So we moved to a temporary location, and then in March, we got COVID and everybody moved home from the temporary location. Now our renovation is wrapping up. So we've got this real pull of, we got a brand new shiny office. Everybody wants to be there, but we are very strictly sticking to the city of Fort Collins and Larimer County guidelines that say we can only have 50% people in the office. And then we also did poll and see who really wanted to be in the office, and it's less than 50%. I think we have 8 people who show up regularly now, but we do have them spread apart and following all the regulations. So I think we just have to keep doing that. I did attend a webinar. I don't know if any of you guys went to this. It was from our liability insurance provider, and they just mentioned some things that as employers, we have to be careful of. We might not think about this because all of our staff members are, like family to us. We feel like we know people. We feel like, we should be safe together. But liability wise, if you don't provide a safe workplace for your employees, it could be a real issue, if somebody got sick and you weren't taking care of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
our office, we poll every time we, virtually get together every week. We check in and we're like, how are we feeling? You still comfortable at home? What can we get you? Monitors, snag the chair, the desk from the office. So all of us have essentially kind of rated the office for things that we need to still be productive. And we're still at a 0%. Yeah, let's go back to the office. So we have no one in there except our principal, Dale. So we have, at this point, no solid plans, and are also, like you all, playing it by ear because we don't know what we don't know.
That's a great point about rating the office. I know when we first sent people home, they were hesitant to do it. And we're like, guys, we have all these desk chairs. Nobody's using it. Just take them. All the monitors, everything was like, just take it home. You want you to be as comfortable and as productive as possible. And it's kind of counterintuitive for people to be like, who usually ride their bike to work, trying to bring 2 monitors home with them. So we're trying to make those kinds of arrangements with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone got home with their air-on chair, and the other surprising thing is I think everyone is a bit more productive at home. And frankly, as Rob was introducing this and talking about resiliency and sustainability, I mean, let's face it, if half of our staff isn't commuting an hour or 2 a day to get to an office, the world's a better place.
Yeah.
Well, one more question from the audience kind of on that topic. How do you all see the CA role changing post-COVID, and how did it change your firm during COVID? And I know that we're probably all kind of struggling with this phase of our, phase of design. How do we handle that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Because our projects have transitioned to so many more out-of-state projects, we found ourselves, I think, uniquely adaptable to this situation because we were doing so much CA remotely through photos, through, transparent communication with a lot of great project supervisors. There will never be anything that takes the place of a site visit, that initial site visit where you are walking the space, the land, the site to see how your project can feel rooted in it. So I think that's been a really big question for us because we've just inked a few contracts, and how do we begin that very first step? But for everything else, we've been completely doing CA pretty remotely. A few times we will go to the site for our local projects, like in Boulder, Denver. But we're mostly requesting that there be minimal contractors, especially because they're essential workers who never got this time like we have, right? And yeah, that's how we've been dealing with it.
Rebecca, how is RD plus B approached the CA phase?
We're still going to job sites in person, and just trying to stay apart. Some of our jobs are just beginning construction, and so it's more just driving around the site, and looking at it from your car. Others, we've got like some interior remodels that are ongoing, and we do the majority remotely. So we do Zoom OACs, just like this, and then the contractor will walk around with his phone and show everything, which is kind of nice. You're almost like on site every day then, or every once a week, every day they've been sending out photos of the job site. So I think everybody's kind of keeping more in touch with that, and then just showing up to in person less regularly. Yep. But yeah, it's a big challenge.
I have to say we haven't changed that dramatically. We still mostly keep our same weekly on-site OAC schedule with most of our jobs. I think the only shift has just been sort of the timing. Typically we time them for when there are going to be fewer people on site. So we'll either do it during a lunch break or towards the end of the day, but it's really a job by job basis, if things are mostly all open air still, then we're a little more flexible. And once things are more, for interiors and once it's all dried in and everything, then we're more cautious. So for us, it hasn't felt like that much of a shift in how we're treating CA.
Yeah, we've done after hours site visits, even when no one's there, or after hours punch walks even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I found the site visits haven't been that hard when you can get to them. The challenge is doing so much out of state, especially for me. A lot of the places I'd have to quarantine to go to. So we've got a massive job in Florida, Boston, New York, St. Louis. I can't even go there right now. The only place I've been able to go recently was Portland, which has been awesome, not having to travel, but it's tough to service those projects.
Yeah, we have a project in Canada, and as US citizens, we aren't even allowed there.
Have you had to issue some sort of formal policy in order to kind of connect with your contracts so that you're meeting your contractual obligations and kind of staying legal from a stay-at-home perspective? Is there formal policies that you've all established for that?
We've come up with rhetoric. We've decided to, especially at the very beginning, what do you say to the client? We disbanded, I think, March 13th. What do you say to the client where you had the meeting scheduled the next week? So we kind of as a group came up with rhetoric as a general policy, but we have not issued anything formally, and we kind of treat everything we speak to everything on an individual basis.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Rob, because we have our policies as far as our staff and our meeting attendance and stuff like that. But in terms of the CA responsibilities of what we need to do, and one of the things we've talked about is one of our GCs has got an intern who basically just walks around with an iPad and just walks every foot of the building, and then we watch it recorded, and we can fast forward, pause, do what we need to do. But they basically have somebody almost full time between structure, facade, architecture, all the different disciplines, mechanical, trying to get that data out there. But you need a project with a certain amount of size and bandwidth to get that employee. As I think about the newer contracts we've been putting out and uncertainty of the length of the CA, it'd be interesting to try to find some common language for that. Because I definitely don't have the answer, but it is a great question.
Do you have thoughts on that, EJ, as well?
Well, I'm sitting here thinking we haven't done that in our contracts, and I was like, well, I just sent 2 contracts out that had kind of all of our CA responsibilities, per normal. We've been holding our OAC meetings, many virtually, and then as the others were saying, as things are open air, it's very easy. But yeah, that gives me pause about really revisiting the contracts that are going to go out in the next year.
Yeah, I mean, we reference COVID, but it just says we'll meet as permitted by local jurisdictions.
Right.
It doesn't really say how we're going to handle the tasks that we're not able to do due to COVID. And maybe we have to start adding something about, recording if you're local and things of that nature. It's a great question.
We have a question from Jana. During the Denver section town hall, there were some comments about how younger employees are the ones who haven't been able to be as productive as we've switched to a virtual workspace. In this context, how can firms work together to retain the younger and arguably more diverse generation of architects and designers in the pending uncertain economic situation? Do you all have some thoughts about that in terms of kind of the retaining the younger employees? And this is, during a time when probably folks are going to have to operate on a little bit leaner margin, or a little bit leaner in terms of their operation. I know in previous recessions, we've lost entire generations of designers and architects, and that's been a real, that's been kind of a negative aspect of the recession that's more long-term.
I think it's twofold, at least in my office. The training of the younger staff and keeping them busy and productive, generally I'm one of the dams that slows everything down and keeps them from being productive because I can't get stuff to them, and that's just becoming worse now that we're remote. But there are also opportunities that I see out there in terms of continuing ed that's not the lunch and learn garbage you can find online. There's actually really great educational talks available virtually now, where you used to have to be able to pay a couple $1,000s to go to a really good conference, and even then only half the talks are things that actually improve your practice. It's actually, especially on the technical side of architecture, I think there's a lot more available. And I think, the position I'm in, I've got to get better at making time for that informal training, because all the stuff they used to learn through osmosis, or just asking somebody to come over to their desk and bouncing ideas off of who's next to you is a little bit lost. And I mean, I see some of it, and that the younger generation is much better at using, Google Chat and things like that to communicate than, say, I am. Where it used to drive me crazy that they're sitting 10 feet apart using Google Chat, but now all of a sudden it's a life skill that I need to be better at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just making sure that we maintain the time to have those conversations is so important. Like, I think that, the networking and some of the soft skills are really challenging because for younger people to learn right now, because so much of that does traditionally happen in person. Like, and there's just so few opportunities for that I think being really intentional about it is critically important. I mean, the like you were saying, there are great web resources and things right now, but that doesn't really replace sort of that, like, learning how to be a project manager, learning sort of the next role that you might be coming into, because you can't see people doing that in the way that you do in a small office usually. And so I think that it is something that, especially as this continues to extend for longer and longer, we need to make sure that we are taking that into consideration and really focusing on training the next, everyone to the next step in their career.
I was just going to say, I think one thing that's just kind of difficult is since we have project teams that are vertical, pretty much, you've got your project manager, your job captain, your, staff member, they're really only working with each other. And in an office situation, those younger folks have another one next to them who's on a different project. They can talk to each other across project about the same things that they're going through. How did you work that out? Without having to go up the chain to, which they might be less likely to do. So that part is missing. And I think we're doing a lot more mentoring because of that, because, they're only talking to their project team. They're not talking to their neighbors. So I think they're still learning, but it's in a different way.
Rebecca, can you recommend how an employee or how a junior designer in a team structure like that might do things differently or contribute more or differently that would be that would kind of encourage that sort of mentorship?
Yeah, I think, I guess what I'm worried about, and so might have, do some more reaching out, is that we don't want the younger staff to be afraid to ask questions of their project team, or, they're supposed to be using that as a resource to learn. And just because they don't have a buddy sitting across the hall from, across the aisle from them that they can just turn to, it's okay to ask your project manager or your job captain to help you out on that.
I think one of the things that we've been trying to be better about in our office is calling a lot. Like, just pick up the phone and call people on your team a lot, because while it's not quite as good as sort of looking over your shoulder and asking them a question, I think that you can sort of lead by example that that it's okay to reach out, quite a bit and have those conversations that aren't, and just make people feel okay about it by doing it,
Mm-hmm.
I think the one piece of advice I would say that there's some advantage to being able to work at home is that your schedule is freed up in such a way. And I'm just going to give an example. We had a young person in our office, and the young people in our office tend to get thrown in the deep end pretty quickly. And when he did find some, time, he liked working at 11 o'clock at night. He came back to us and said, "Hey, look, I just took one of our projects and I stuck it in this animation program. And we've been previously, sending our animations to Medellin to get done. And so all of a sudden this kid came back with this just amazing animation and set the music and the lighting. It was like, he made himself indispensable, brought a new set of skills to the office, developed a new set of skills for himself. So, I think it's having that inquisitiveness at home to say, okay, what's the skill set I have? What am I missing? What can I bring? What's the skill sets that are missing in the office? Right. How can I innovate for the office?
Yeah, that's a great point. I would echo that at our firm as well. Just developing skills that are really well-rounded, rather than kind of niche, really helps us be, as we all seek to be more flexible in approaching projects, help us achieve that. So whether it's even helping with marketing or something unique like that, or just and like Lauren said, also giving them these opportunities as well, reaching out, bringing them to a job site, even though it feels counterintuitive when you're trying to, you know, meet less people, but all that's important.
We've always kind of had a culture of that kind of rebellion of best idea wins and people evolving things. And as we've been, you know, kind of pushed into this new workplace, a lot of the ideas that have improved collaboration have actually come from the younger team members. You know, it's just things I was not even aware of. They're like, let's try this. Like, for example, one of our to-do list things we use is a program called Asana. It's all web-based. Absolutely fantastic, you know, kind of to-do list style program for collaboration. And things like that have really changed the way we operate. So that on the organizational, but you're just finding more efficient ways to do things, whether that ended up turning into grasshopper scripting or different things. People just kind of self-championed it, kind of like EJ was mentioning.
Yeah. Well, speaking of marketing, Anna, one of the questions from the audience, Kevin Reese with Clark Custom Cabinetry in Loveland. As many projects have been put on hold, do you find yourself spending more time and more money on marketing and business development? Which markets are most productive at this time? Residential home remodeling, residential new build, commercial, hospitality, education, government, etc. Marketing, what are you doing that is providing or proving to be a positive return on investment? So I know, like in our firm, you know, in the very first pendulum swing that Rebecca was kind of stuck at home, we didn't really know we didn't know what to do. We were kind of struggling. We kind of went internal and did some strategic planning and business development and marketing planning, and that seemed like something that we could do remotely and collaborate on. Is that the case with you all and your firms? Have you spent more time marketing, you know, during this time period?
It's interesting. Our director, we had a sort of a strategy director and marketing person who decided to take COVID to spend more time with her family. So she stepped out after being with us for about 2.5 years. And so it's something that we've had to redirect. I wouldn't say that we're doing any more or less. I think we're directing it differently. I think we're all taking more advantage of our personal spaces, whether that be LinkedIn or social media. You know, it's sort of 3-part for us. It's each person taking a hold of that. It is working on publications. And then we've been reaching back out to, you know, after 25 years, we've got quite a client list, and they've always been sort of our best advocates. So we've been reaching back out to our client group saying, hey, you know, still looking for that summer cabin, or, you know, is that kitchen old yet? But just letting them know we're here.
Yep.
I think the hardest thing for me, honestly, is an awful lot of the business development has always been face-to-face, especially in the private home sector. And not being able to attend fundraisers or events or, you know, meet people in a restaurant. That for me personally has been the hardest part, as far as limiting how I do business development.
Yeah.
Our firm is in the educational sector, and I know you listed that in the question. It's a little bit different kind of marketing because we basically respond to RFQs and RFPs. And so it's been pretty much the same.
Yeah.
It hasn't really changed that much.
And so would you imagine that for you might have to work differently down the road if this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I had mentioned that early on when I was talking with Rob, that in the educational sector, we don't see the fall off right away. In past recessions, it's always been something that's come along another year or two later, our dip. And that's because the projects right now are funded, but funding for new projects is, we don't know what will happen when bond issues come around in November. If, people will want to pay more taxes for schools in their neighborhoods. But but as far as, I think one of the resiliency things that we're seeing though is that there's a difference in our in what clients need. So for instance, in schools, they're trying to figure out how they can maybe make some small changes in their facility in order to support students when they come back in the fall. So, our services may change a little bit in supporting clients in adapting their facilities to what's coming.
I have one more question, kind of relating to maybe younger employees, or not necessarily. On a small residential scale, staying very busy, is there a resource for contract workers, employees, or employee sharing? And that's always been a topic or an idea that we've thought was pretty intriguing. How do you share resources in a downturn so that you could protect some of your junior staff so that they don't end up leaving the profession permanently? How do you all feel about that? Do we have the kind of culture in Colorado where architects that might be in the same kind of competing in the same region could share resources?
I don't know if there's a clearinghouse for it right now, but that might be something that Colorado AIA looks into. Maybe there could be a job share board or something like that you could post on. For us in Fort Collins, we are actually using some of our neighboring firms. We are sharing a little bit. And at one, early on, I reached out to a firm that I knew did more commercial or residential work and said, hey, if you've got a few people that you want to, employ another way, we could use some help. And then a little while later, we had another one of our neighbor firms reach out to us and say, hey, we've got another person that, could use something to do. Do you have something they could work on? So I think there is a really great environment for that in Northern Colorado that we're pretty open to, making each other better. So I don't know what the clearinghouse would be, but just reaching out individually might work too.
Yeah, well, I think that's great, Rebecca. Thanks for sharing that.
Especially as a smaller firm, the ability to hire that next staff member, the smaller you are, it's a greater percentage of your cost structure that it takes to do it. And taking that leap, we were only 4 or 5 people. Taking that leap to hire the next person is exceptionally scary. And in this market, to be able to have the ability to do contract work with another firm, we've done it on the engineering side a bit. Facade side, we've had a harder time finding people to do it because generally the architects we need there are just a little too high demand, hard to find in the first place. But it makes it a lot easier to handle those ups and downs that our billing cycles go through, and not having to put yourself in a position where you're committing to a whole new hire and then you're scared for the next couple of months that you may have to lay them off. Because I'll tell you, as a business owner, that's been last recession, that was the most painful thing I ever went through. And not having to do that now has been kind of fantastic, but it makes it a lot easier, I think, with that sharing mindset.
So I'd like to reach back out to the audience and see if there's any last questions that we could pose to the panelists. You could go ahead and send those through. And then we also have an audience poll related to the town hall, and that's simply how valuable was this presentation. And yeah, there's the first poll. So yeah, we would ask that you participate in this and send that vote all the way through. And then I have one more question for the panelists. What changes can Northern Colorado firms undertake to promote equity, diversity, and inclusion in the profession and in the community? How can architects incorporate these values right now, given all the rest that is happening at the same time?
So I can answer from my firm's perspective. We were wrestling with that question, a month or so ago. And since we're so involved in education, and we really believe that if we can support children as they're learning, that's how we can make an impact. So we thought back to a couple of years ago when we had the hip hop architect gave us a presentation that was really great at our Colorado AIA conference. And, that's what he's really doing is trying to introduce architecture to youngsters, and especially, inner city or kids that might not have a chance to understand what architecture is all about. So we just decided to support that, his group, and sent a donation to them, just figured that was something we could do from where we're sitting that would really support young kids in eventually, hopefully becoming, being in the architecture profession.
Yeah, ironically, just before COVID, we kind of enacted a diversity, well, I would call it more an inclusionary committee in the office to talk about diversity issues, to talk about equity issues, because we're really tying them to sustainability and how you build. And I think it's all, it is all part of the same struggle. Interestingly, about a month after that, we received an RFQ by a place called the Highlander Center in Tennessee to rebuild. They were burned out by white nationalists in March of last year, the rebuilding. And we were fortunate enough to be put on the RFQ list. And that really opened up my eyes to, I thought we were being inclusionary. And after, talking to them, and they all disappeared as soon as people took it to the streets, because they sent their entire staff to different cities to organize. But it really opened my eyes to the maybe the single-mindedness with which we pursue architecture, and to understand that being carbon-free really is also tied to equity issues as far as gender and race as well. Really has strengthened our commitment to that if you're really going to be somewhat revolutionary in this world. Mm-hmm.
Anna, do you have comments related to that particular question?
Sure. I think EJ brings up a great point. Like, the more we can see our work and how we can plug in a more intersectionalist way matters. It can be very single-minded, and in our local policies, they matter. Our housing policies matter. Representation matters. I mean, even thinking about like education, how can we get more representation? I think education and how architecture school is set up, I can't help but think that it doesn't allow everyone who wants to pursue it. And I'd love to talk more about that subject personally. But I think just like the last few Boulder energy conservation codes, we've had similar small town halls about its revisions. And the last one, a few of you actually attended, we brought up how the policies were actually affecting people who didn't have the same income being able to improve or renovate. And I think, I don't know, the local policies, they matter in bigger ways. And I'd love for Boulder, because that's where we work, to think about how climate isn't the single thing, and how it is tied to equity and everything. So I think I'd just love to see the picture get a little wider, and collaborate with people who aren't just architects, to how we can, you know, get outside people to start thinking about some solutions.
Yeah, I think we just have to sort of ask that question over and over again, you know, like every time you hire, like, what, you know, what are you missing that could be unique that you could bring to your team? And what, you know, like, is there a chance for public outreach in this project? And can that, you know, how do we make sure to get groups involved that aren't involved? And in our volunteering, you know, is there more work that we can be doing with our local city and with our local municipalities? I think it's just trying to ask that question to ourselves over and over and over again, because we haven't been as an industry for quite a while.
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious when you walk into AIA. I mean, if you don't see it, if you don't feel it, it's palpable. The representation, it matters.
Well,
I think
and
it comes down to, we all have to be willing to take a stand. We all have to be willing to, you know, this is our stand about equity in the office place. This is our stand about, I mean, we've all had clients push back against things that, you know, we know are perhaps not forward moving, and you have to be willing to be pushed back on them. Say, no, that's not the right thing to do.
More diverse office also creates better design, better ideas. I mean, the more backgrounds you have, the better it's going to be.
So creating real structures for inclusion, I think, and maybe this type of town hall might allow for that. So if AIA were able to reach out and, you know, be more inclusive with outreach, and then creating more structures for folks to have their voices heard. So if that's the case, we do have another poll related to this particular event, and how valuable does the audience feel this presentation was, or this event? And if we could try to, before all the audience leaves for, it's 1:03, so I think we're coming close to the end. If we're able to kind of check in with everyone and see if they could fill that out. We also are really grateful to all of you, the panelists, for this discussion, and hope that we can call you back in the future. There's, you know, the intention would be to have a regular town hall for the North section, and try to connect with other organizations as well. I know Lauren is involved with the Colorado Green Building Guild. We've talked about having some joint events related to that. And so if you have any final comments, I think for the audience on the topic of pivoting, or looks like 7 out of 10 feel that this town hall was a benefit, which is pretty good. Rebecca, do you have any final thoughts related to the discussion?
Oh, well, I think, you know, I'm appreciative of your asking us to get together and talk about these things, and not sure that we've come up with anything that was, you know, new or, but it was good to be able to share ideas. And, you know, I jotted down some things people mentioned. So, you know, I'm thought it was pretty beneficial. So thank you.
Sure. EJ, do you have some final thoughts?
Having been hidden away from the AIA for a little while, it's been good to actually, you know, get out. As someone said earlier in the presentation, I think it was Chris, it's just good to see new faces again, more old familiar faces. I think this whole pandemic is an opportunity to reset, honestly, both at the personal level the institutional level, it really, I don't believe that normal, going back to normal is necessarily good for us or the right thing or even possible. And so I think using this time to really rethink and reset and use it as an opportunity. If we don't do that as a culture, then I think we've lost the message.
I'd agree with you, EJ. I think we're getting better through this. We may not be better now than we were before as far as doing our jobs, but as things move back to, you know, a safer environment where we can get together again, there's going to be so many things we've learned through this process, so many elements of things we took for granted that we've actively rethought and try to get down to the essence of what's the best way of doing business and what's the best way of collaborating and all these different things. And I definitely am seeing a very different future as a result of that, regardless of how quickly we get back to the quote unquote normal. And then as far as being on this panel, thank you very much, AIA Rob, for inviting me to do it. I must admit, selfishly, I feel like I'm taking more out of it than I'm giving into it right now. There's been a lot of poignant questions that have me thinking even more, and there's definitely a lot of things I've already learned talking amongst the panelists. So thank you.
Yeah, agreed. And kind of like EJ said, I haven't been as involved with AIA, and I would love to see it grow to be more collaboration minded. Like I would love, for example, a town hall with the group that Lauren's involved with, and town halls with other people who are doing adjacent work. I think I would love to feel relevant in kind of larger capacities within the community. And I do think this has given us the opportunity to think about and be mindful about the community, not just for the health of us, our employees, our neighbors, our clients, but how can we keep that idea of, I don't know, just looking out for each other and creating better, safer spaces for mind, body health in kind of a larger scale. So yeah, also getting more out of this as well.
Yeah, I think it's important moving forward that, like EJ said, we focus on sort of the opportunities that this presents, and we make sure that we're really, I think it's easy to get sucked into the news or the, I don't know, sort of these smaller distractions, the amount of email in our inboxes, and really making sure that we're still focusing on the things that are truly important in terms of our projects, but also in terms of checking in with the people in our office and making those those connections really strong and happen, and taking the time for all of that. And yeah.
You're on mute, Rob.
Sorry about that. There was a barking dog in the background, so I had to put it on mute. Well, we do have the intention of having more of these town halls, but are there other suggestions that you can think of, and maybe as well to the audience? If we could just reach out, we've got some attendees still there. You can fill it out in the chat section. How valuable was this presentation, and what else would you like to see from the North section? You're also welcome to email me directly or AIA Colorado. So feel free to email me at rob@pyattstudio.com if there's anything that I can do, and certainly I'll forward on to the folks at AIA Colorado as well.
Well, thanks for moderating, Rob.
Sure, thank you very much. I think we're probably coming to a close. If Amy, if there's any other announcements you'd like me to make, feel free to add that to the chat window. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time, and we hope to do this again soon.